Welcome to the Bowden Blitz SEC edition. I'm Joe Lisi, joined by former National Coach of the Year, Terry Bowden. Coach, SEC Championship game set this coming Saturday at 4 p.m. It's a rematch of Alabama and Georgia. We'll take a look at that game a little bit later in the show. Let's take a look at the updated college football national championship odds entering this weekend as it relates to the SEC. Georgia, the top dog at 8-1, followed by the Aggies of Texas A&M, 12-1, Bama at 14-1, Ole Miss 27-1, and then Oklahoma sits with a 60-1 number. Coach, give me your thoughts about the conference as a whole entering championship Saturday.
You know, I've always felt Georgia had the kind of team that could go far in the postseason. I was going to watch and see what I thought was beginning to feel strongly about Texas A&M, and I kind of still do. I worry a little bit about their offense after what they did in their last football game, but I think those two, to me, are two that could go a lot further than people imagine. Alabama, not as much. Ole Miss, I don't think so. I think the odds are about right, but I think you've got teams that Georgia, Texas A&M, possibly Alabama that can go a long way. I think you have to be pretty good on both sides of the football. That's the one thing about postseason. I think if you don't score points, you're going to have a hard time keeping up with the best teams because the best teams play great defense and can put points on the board.
Absolutely. Now, the college football playoff rankings came out this past Tuesday. There was a lot of hype, a lot of comments, a lot of opinions based on where some of these schools were, most notably Notre Dame over Miami with the head-to-head. But I also saw Ole Miss. They held firm, right? They were up a notch, even losing their head coach, Lane Kiffin. But I saw some disrespect to Oklahoma and want to get your take. The perception about Oklahoma just being a defensive-minded team and not being looked at as a complete football team with Brett Venables, to me, is completely asinine. This is a team that's 10-2 overall, has marquee wins in tough road environments, Tennessee and Alabama. They handed Alabama only their second home loss dating back to 2020. They went into Rocky Top and knocked off Tennessee, covered against Missouri and Michigan. Why are people not buying in to the Oklahoma Sooners at this point in the season?
Well, I think as much as you say they can do it offensively, they are a decent offensive football team. And when I look at them, I say Mateer has done a good job. I don't think he's a great quarterback. I think he's a good quarterback. I don't see the running skills as a deceptive runner or a speed runner. He's just a good, smart running quarterback. And if you look at the dadgum top 12 or top 25, they are the highest ranked two-loss team in the country right now. It's sitting there at number 8. Everybody above them has no losses or one. And so I don't know that they've been dissed in regard to where they sit in the rankings. As I watch them play, I just have the feeling when you get to the playoffs, I think you've got to have the ability to play great defense, run the football. And if you have to score points, you've got to have enough offense to do that. I'm very comfortable where they are. But, yes, I think a lot of people don't give them enough credit to go far in the playoffs. They're going to have to win with low-scoring games. I think that's got to be a given. They've got to win low-scoring games, low 20s to win football games. But they've proven they can do it when you get to the Ohio States and the Indianas and Oregons and Georgia. I don't think you can win with that low of a score.
No, I agree. And I just want to take it a step further. Two teams last year that squared off in the semifinal playoff game, Notre Dame and Penn State, didn't have elite offenses. We're talking about Drew Aller that didn't complete a pass to a wide receiver last year, and Riley Leonard, who was not a great quarterback, but yet we gave all of those teams credit. I think it's just completely disrespectful when you hear some of these media outlets, bash Brad Venables for the job that he has done, and all he's done is stepped up and win football games, not deserving, in my opinion, for the Oklahoma Sooners. I do want to bring up Lane Kiffin and obviously that hire, because there's more news out, and I want to get your take. I don't know if you heard this, Coach, but Lane Kiffin hired on Sunday. He's not going to coach, obviously, the Ole Miss Rebels, but Charlie Weiss Jr. will be able to coach. The offensive coordinator, Pete Golden, does take over. It's a 7-year deal, $91 million. There he is. He's already in Baton Rouge. Did this news report that came out of ESPN said that Lane Kiffin potentially was down to 4 schools. The 4th school, Coach, was potentially Florida State. I don't know if you heard that, but how would Florida State get involved in that type of situation when we know about the other big schools, LSU, Florida, and some of the others?
Florida State had absolutely zero chance to get Lane Kiffin if he wanted to go there. They have no money left. They've got no money right now to pay their coach that they've got, because I don't know if there's anybody in their administration or in the stands that didn't want a coaching change. It didn't fit into what they have budget-wise or what they have available, and that's just the truth. So that's probably one of those rumors. Now, I know there was a time as my dad was finishing up his career there and Jimbo was there, that I think Lane saw that as a great job to have. That's why I always thought he loved Florida, and he does love the state of Florida in that type of place. And he would have been, I think, an interesting pick there. But you know what? LSU's got everything that he wants. For anybody that said, I think he's going to stay at Ole Miss, I don't think he ever went to Ole Miss planning to stay. It was always a step along the way. Lane Kiffin looks at Nick Saban. He looks at the guys that have won a ton of football games, and it's with him. It's where can I go and have the best chance to win national championships? And he felt like that would be at a Florida or an LSU, and he took it. I personally, I come from a different school. I think, you know what, they gave him a chance to reinvent his career. It was flat. It wasn't going anywhere, and they helped bring it back. I just think sometimes the best jobs don't open at the right time, and the best one is the one that you got. But he's got the LSU job. If you're LSU, be ready, because in about 3 or 4 years, he could be going to the NFL and have no problem leaving you. Or I'm gonna say this: surely he knows what he got into. It ain't nothing like Ole Miss. You win, you go 10-2 and don't win the SEC or get to the national championship, they'll be buying that contract out too. So that drama is just getting started down at LSU.
Now, he retained Blake Baker, but after Summerall took the job at Florida, Blake Baker now, Coach, is the new front runner on multiple markets to be the new head coach at Tulane. How does that affect the Tigers moving forward, especially from a defensive perspective in 26?
Well, Lane Kiffin's an offensive coach. He spent an entire lifetime having to have a short list of defensive coordinators. So he'll find one, and they will pay whatever they need to pay. He'll go find everybody's favorite and go hire him. He'll get somebody that's proven, somebody that they can count on, and that's what he's going to do, because he knows he is going to fool around with the offense. I don't think he doesn't call. Charlie Weiss calls the plays. He may add one every now and then, but he's not the play caller. It's Charlie Weiss, but he does fool around with the offense. He needs to get and he will get an outstanding defensive coordinator at LSU. And because he is good enough, he's done it enough. He knows what he's got to have. He's got to have a great defensive coordinator.
Now, I agree 100%, and I'll just say this. I know Blake Baker's great. A lot of people like him, but he struggles against mobile quarterbacks. Marcel Reed abused us. Trinidad Chambliss abused us. Jalen Milroe abused LSU last year. I would pump the brakes on, thinking that you're losing a marquee defensive coordinator. There's always somebody potentially just a little bit better. The $25 million roster for Lane Kiffin is basically what sealed the deal for LSU over Ole Miss. He got the vote of confidence, supposedly, from Nick Saban, greatest modern-day head coach in college football. When we come back, we'll touch on the SEC Heisman race. Can Diego Pavia steal the Heisman without even playing the game? We'll talk about it coming up next. All right, back on the Bowden Blitz, Joe Lisi and Coach Bowden previewing the SEC title game. We'll dive into that in just a couple of minutes, but I mentioned Heisman Trophy. I mentioned Diego Pavia. Coach loves what the Vanderbilt quarterback has done this year, finishes the regular season at 10-2 overall. He's plus 170, Coach, to steal the hardware potentially after this weekend. He's not even going to play. Could Diego Pavia be our Heisman winner this season?
Somebody's going to have to go out there and pump him. I mean, they did a big poster up in Times Square, the whole big deal. Back when I was at ABC, and you were there when I was there, John Saunders got all over Charles Woodson. You remember it was the quarterback, Peyton Manning, was the number one guy, and then John started pumping him. And if you could get a couple of top guys, the Nick Sabans, to start bumping Pavia is the most deserving quarterback in the country. I believe nobody could have done at Vanderbilt what he did. He's a generational quarterback that had the first 10-win season in school history. I thought they probably could plug several quarterbacks in at Ohio State or Indiana and probably have results very similar. Those are good quarterbacks. They're part of a great machine. I think Diego Pavia has made the biggest impact on a program. Even you look at Clark Lee, he was 2-10, 5-7, 2-10. All of a sudden he gets Diego Pavia and he's 7-6, 10-2. We're not even sure if it's the head coach or the quarterback in that regard, but that's the kind of impact he's had on that program. I just wish, and nobody's going to see him anymore unless somehow he got in the playoffs, which I don't think he can get in. He's not going to get any kind of push unless a couple of top promoters, because it is a publicity type of deal, unless some people publicly get on him, start promoting him, because that thing will be voted on right after the conference championship, the week after the conference championships, and he's not in it.
It will. Now, his last two games against Kentucky and Tennessee, he played incredible. I mean, he dominates Kentucky 45-17, 484 yards, 5 touchdown passes. Last week against Tennessee, puts up over 260 yards. He snaps a 6-game losing streak to the Volunteers. I mean, Coach, if you just think about it, Vanderbilt had lost 6 straight times to Tennessee by an average margin of defeat of 26.6 points per game.
Right.
They were completely dominated by the Volunteers in recent years, and he went out there and beat them by 21 points on their field. And it was basically an even game at halftime, and they pull away in the second half. That's how important Diego Pavia is to the Commodores.
He sure is. And I mean, that's a hard game to swallow for those Tennessee fans now. For them to look at Vanderbilt, and Vanderbilt just dominated the second half. It made them look bad. And Pavia was the one doing it. And so, again, it's if you don't pay a close enough attention, and I'm afraid being at Vanderbilt, he doesn't quite get the attention he deserves that Mendoza gets or Sayin gets at Ohio State. But if anybody has been watching, like I say, there has been no more impactful quarterback. No quarterback, and it's a great story. Where he comes from and where he is and what he's done, all those things that tie into that award, he checks all the boxes there. So anyway, I've said my piece. I really feel that he is the most deserving, and I'm not just a Southern guy that's saying, okay, he's from the SEC. I watch them all, and the other two quarterbacks are very, very good, but they're part of a big time great program and a great winning team. And I'm not sure that Curt Cignetti probably could find one or two quarterbacks that could do for him what his quarterback did for him last year is very similar to what this quarterback doing for him. Same thing for Ohio State.
We'll see what transpires in just a couple of weeks when Army and Navy play. After that, we'll get the Heisman Trophy winner. He's at least deserving of being invited to New York City. We'll see how it plays out over the next week. Let's turn our attention to Atlanta, a rematch of a game that took place in the month of September. Alabama snapped Georgia's 33-game home winning streak. They won that matchup, Coach, 24-21. We saw Alabama struggle on the Plains last week. They picked up a 7-point road win over their arch rival Auburn. Same thing with Georgia against Georgia Tech. They grinded out a 16-9 win in Atlanta against the Yellow Jackets. Right now, Georgia, 2.5-point favorite in this matchup. How do you see it playing out?
Well, again, I like Georgia in this game. I think again it's the second time they played Alabama, but I really think this game is personal for Kirby. I mean, he's 0-2 against DeBoer. He has had a bad record against Alabama, and I think he's recognized probably as the top coach in the country. But this is his real nemesis, Alabama, and I can't see him. He's lost twice, and each time he's lost to DeBoer at Alabama, he's gotten behind early, has not come on strong at the beginning. They have to come out aggressively and keep this game close or get ahead early. If they're going to play catch up, they could very well lose this game just like they did the last time. And so, but I do think that they will keep it close. They'll go after them. I think they'll be emotionally, they will be fired up. Kirby will have them fired up because, again, this game is very personal to him and what he wants to be. And the team he knows he's got to beat in the SEC every year is Alabama. He's got to show he can do it. So I love Georgia. They'll keep it close at the beginning, and I think they run and they'll lay it on at the end of the game. And that defense will stifle the offense at Alabama.
I think when you look at the first matchup, Georgia was able to run the football consistently. They put up 227 yards on Alabama, averaged well over 6.4 yards per carry. And Alabama still struggled with Auburn. They allowed 152 rushing yards to the Tigers on Saturday night. They built a 17-0 first half lead and allowed that to slip. This isn't the same Alabama defense, Coach, that we've seen in recent years with Nick Saban. We'll see if they could step up. We'll turn our attention in next segment to the Alabama side. Do want to just state about Georgia right now. Defensively is where this team is progressing. We know that they have the offense. They could throw it with Gunnar Stockton. They have the two big play running backs of Bowens and Nate Frazier. The wide receivers have come on, Branch and some of the others, Dylan Bell. But this defense is playing like a championship caliber unit.
Yeah, I mean, the quarterback at Georgia Tech, Haynes King, was having a great year. They shut him down completely. He did nothing. They had to settle for field goals, couldn't score points. And so I see that being the case with Ty Simpson. Their defense will be the stars of the day and their running attack.
When we come back, we'll preview the Alabama side. Coming right back on the Bowden Blitz. Keep it where it is. All right, back on the Bowden Blitz, Joe Lisi and Coach Bowden previewing Saturday's matchup between Alabama and Georgia. We talked about Georgia opening as a 2.5-point favorite in this game. It's played in the Mercedes-Benz Dome. It's back-to-back games for Georgia, playing their arch rival Georgia Tech in the same stadium. Any benefit to that, Coach? Knowing they're very familiar with in playing in Atlanta in the Mercedes-Benz Dome, but is any added benefit in back-to-back games?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a very loud stadium. I've seen a lot of legal procedures, offensive lines jumping off sides because of the noise in the indoor facility that it is. I think now that they've been through it, they'll have a comfort level there. It's going to be practically, it's a home game for them with the number of people that they'll have sitting in that stadium. But again, I look at the way Auburn's defense dominated Alabama last week, held them to 280 yards of offense, and really dominated almost every category. Georgia's got a better defense than even Auburn. Auburn's got a good defense, but Georgia's even better. So I really like Georgia playing in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium and facility, and I like the way their defense plays. Alabama, again, struggled last week against Auburn's very, very good defense.
Now, let's take a look at Alabama. Offensively, they're averaging 33 points per game. Defense only giving up 16 points per game. If you want a bright spot for Alabama, has to be the rushing attack that put up 158 yards on the ground against a very good defense in Auburn. Auburn was only allowing opponents to rush for around 2.8 yards per carry and only 94 rushing yards per game heading into that matchup. That was a very solid effort on the road. And when you look at this team as a whole right now, they are a pass-happy group, right? As Ty Simpson goes, so does this offense. They have one of the worst rushing attacks in Alabama history over the past 15 seasons, only averaging 3.7 yards per rush and 126 yards per game. They're going to need a much better effort on Saturday afternoon to win this game.
Oh, no, they will. There's no question about it. Ty Simpson's going to need to add to the running attack. Really, after watching him against Auburn, I was much more impressed with his athleticism. He had 3 touchdown passes, but they were all, I think, shorter than 10 yards. They were at the goal line that he got 3 touchdown passes. But I think his running is, if Alabama's going to find a way to run enough to win this game, a lot of that running yardage has got to come from him. And the other strength is they only give up 16.5 points a game. And so that's in their favor, is their defense isn't playing that bad. They're playing pretty dang good. And so it means they're not necessarily going to fall too far behind anybody. So it's going to be up to Ty Simpson and me to add to the running attack, because I don't think it's going to come out of their backs at enough pace and enough yards per carry to see them through without him making some big plays in the running game.
Now, Ty Simpson was a Heisman frontrunner for much of the regular season. He completed 65% of his passes, 25 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, Coach. But the last couple of games against Eastern Illinois, they won that matchup 56-0. He only throws for 147 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions, only threw for $122 against Auburn. But it was very good to get the win because he threw 3 touchdown passes.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, he's going to have to run and pass. I think he's an outstanding quarterback. I watched him, and I watched the way he plays, and I really think he's got a great football IQ. You know, his dad's a head coach at Tennessee Martin. He's been raised around football, got a good feel for the game. He shows a lot of poise, but I think his strength against Georgia is going to come with his ability to pick times to run the football and make big plays with his legs along with that, because, again, I don't think they've got a good enough running attack with their running backs to really challenge Georgia enough to win the game.
I think when you look at Alabama's strength defensively, Coach, has to be the secondary, holding opposing quarterbacks to 59% completion percentage. They've only allowed 8 passing touchdowns and forced 10 interceptions. That's going to be a cause of concern for Georgia, right? They're going to have to run the football, stay in manageable third downs. Otherwise, that would give Alabama the edge going up against Gunnar Stockton.
Let me say this: if it's just close, if it's tied at halftime or Georgia's ahead a little bit, they'll push forward and beat them in the second half. Georgia just can't get so far behind that they got to spend the entire second half catching up, and we've seen them have to do that several times. So to me, be careful. Watch that first quarter. Watch that first half. If Georgia just makes sure it's a nice close game at halftime, they'll pull it on with that running attack in the second half.
Yeah, Coach and I both like Georgia in the matchup. We'll see exactly how it plays out. It's a 4:00 kick, Mercedes-Benz Dome. Winner definitely in the college football playoff. Loser, we'll see. If it's Georgia, they're in. If it's Alabama, they might be on the outside looking in. We'll be back next week breaking it down for you. For Coach Bowden, I'm Joe Lisi. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the games.